Well, if they hit us with the grappling, then I need you to introduce me to your doctor. Hey, if they tell me, if they go, yo, you got to grapple Chael at the end of this thing, then yeah, I need you to hook me up with your doctor, Chael. I'd appreciate that.
I don't know what that comment meant, but that's just a weird thing to say. To me. What is it? What were we talking about?
What's up, guys? Welcome to a brand new episode of Good Guy, Bad Guy. I'm Daniel Cormier. That's the bad guy, Chael Sonnen. What's up, Chael P?
What's happening, man? I'm in a great spirit, Daniel. It is 30 degrees outside. Relevance being, in Oregon, we don't get snow every year, but we pray for snow. We're unlike every other part of the country that hates it. We love it. So now we've got the temperature where we need it. We need a little precipitation. It's going to be a school day tomorrow, snow day tomorrow, hopefully.
So you know how you're feeling really good right now? I am feeling horrible.
Oh, that makes me feel even better. How come?
And it should. I am so pissed off right now. All right. I was gone all last week, right? We went to the UFC and everything. I live with my nephew. Sweet guy. But boy, sometimes the butterflies will just fly off in a different direction. So, dude, the best part about being Chael Sonnen or Daniel Cormier is that people give you free stuff. Dude, I got something. I show up last night and I walk to the front door. I've been gone since Tuesday. And there's a box, 2 of them, beautifully wrapped. And I go, well, this looks like food. It's from a place called the Backyard Butchers. Bro, it's 2 boxes of beautifully individually wrapped steaks, ground beef, chicken. He brought the package in and left it at the front door. So they're all bad. I mean, that has to be $1,000 worth of meat. It's so sad.
And they had ice packs. It was probably one of those white
they had ice
styrofoam. Yeah, but that won't hold you for a week. That only holds about 2 days.
Not for 5 days. It might hold you for about 1 or 2. But you got to take it and put it in you got to put it in the freezer. So Backyard Butchers, if you're listening, hook me up. And then maybe take care of my boy Chael P too.
While you're at it, take care of Chael P. Daniel, you said the best part about being Chael, and that's how you let in that is free stuff. I got told in about 2004 that Mike Tyson doesn't need money. And I said, but I don't know what that means. What do you mean he doesn't need money? They said, well, he has nothing to buy. I said, I don't understand that. He needs to eat. And they said, no. Mike Tyson can go to any restaurant, anywhere in the world, breakfast, lunch, or dinner, and just get up and walk out. No, somebody in that restaurant will have picked up his tab. And I go, but what if they didn't? That's dining and dashing. That's a terrible thing to do. And they said it would never happen anywhere in the world. Any time of day, Mike can show up with a group of people, eat, get up, and walk out. Somebody will have picked up the tab. I don't know if that's true or not, but I have always wanted that level.
You can actually find a place in town that will always feed you. Like, there are places that if you go, they refuse to take your money. It's like the craziest thing in the world. And I love it, honestly. That's one of the best parts of that. Now, I do still want money. Trust me. We're not in a place where we don't need money, Chael. We want money, but we do get a lot of free shit. So Backyard Butchers, come and hook me and Chael up. I'll send you his address. So Chael P, last weekend, we're in L.A. We're at that arena, and on Thursday, you and I are doing the show, and we're talking about the arena, and you kind of tried to put it over. You were like, oh, it's beautiful. I go, well, it's just another arena, you know what I mean? I wasn't impressed, but on Saturday night, I was impressed. Boy, that felt like a miniature sphere, didn't it? It felt like we were in the sphere almost.
Yes. If that wasn't the nicest venue I've ever been in, it was the second. And it's just an argument between it and Sphere. So much was made of Sphere, and somebody spent $2 billion. And, even Beyonce didn't have the technology to play it. Those things kind of affected me and raised Sphere. But the more I was into that arena over the weekend, Daniel, can we get into Islam, man? I don't get impressed. I don't look up to people that are younger than me. I just don't. I wouldn't call them Mr. or Sir. Like, in a million years, that would never happen. But I got to tell you, I was having a hard time still looking at Islam like that as he was leading the building. Like Islam Makhachev, I'm going to tell you the story because this story is less than 2 years old. Islam Makhachev cannot get a title fight. He's 15-1. He's only lost 1 time in the UFC. He's beaten everybody, but he can't get a title shot because he's not famous. He's not known. People don't want to see him fight. Daniel, It's not like that anymore. To get a glimpse of Islam, I was pulling around trying to look around a curtain just because I heard Islam's in the other room. You're just trying to see him. Daniel, it is one thing to be a really good fighter, okay? But there is a mentality. There's a kind of fight. And so a guy will create that kind of fight. The great Jon Jones has got to be victimized. He's got to be angry at the opponent, but it's not just an anger standpoint. I'm angry because you have wronged me. And he does a great job. Yep. Jon will do a great job of spinning a story in his own mind. It's fascinating to watch, but I bring that up because all of the greats have a way. They have a thing within their approach. Islam got put in a position that he never could have possibly fantasized about being about. He could never lay his head down at night and he's running different scenarios. And we do that as fighters, right? Okay, I won a round, he's won a round, but my nose is broken. I got 5 minutes left. How am I going to close this one out? Like, we run every possible scenario. He would have never thought he was going to be in there with Money Moicano. He would have never thought his opponent, his biggest and hardest fight ever, which he's never denied. He said, I can beat the guy like I've beat him before, but he never said this isn't my hardest opponent, is gone. There's a relief from that. But then when you find out you're going to fight somebody that nobody is building up, that you've got no videotape on, that you never once considered, who has nothing to lose, it puts you into a sort of a position mentally. He overcame that like it was nothing. And he had a relief, Daniel. He did have a relief in his post-fight interview that he didn't speak about, but his body language sure let it off. But the fact that he did that, there was only one thing that he could do. And I'm sorry for being wordy, but please, there's only one thing that he could do. He's got to beat Moicano. He's got to beat him in the first round, and nothing bad can happen to him in the process. You were in this exact same spot against Pat Cummins. It wasn't just that you had to win that fight. You had to win in a specific way, or you, Daniel Cormier, would have lost.
Even in winning, you would have lost.
Did it. Islam did it. But would you agree with me? The comparison to you versus Pat Cummins would ended up being a #1 contenders match. Like, that's as close as we've ever seen to what Islam had to go and deal with. Is that fair?
No, you're right. Because I was watching him as he walked into the octagon, and I was like, ooh. I was like, you could tell that it's a lot, right? Plus, think about this. He had just watched Umar lose for the first time in his career. You start thinking to yourself, right? I'm a big-time favorite. My teammate is going to go become the world champion. He gets beat by a guy that's a big-time underdog to him. Then you're getting ready to go out there with a guy in Moicano who has tremendous Muay Thai skills. He's a really good grappler. And I could see a little bit on Islam's face that he was kind of living and dealing with that. But he went out there and he fought beautifully, dude. It looked like Moicano hit him good early in the fight, too. Like the very first interaction, he caught him a little bit. And then Islam resettled himself. Once he got that takedown, though, it was par for the course. You know, Joe, this guy, we are wrestlers, just like Makhachev. But guys could somehow move on the bottom when I took them down. Granted, once they started to get up, I would try to allow them to get up so I could throw them back down, right? That's fatigue. But with Makhachev, they don't even move. And I'm talking about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts, Chael. Oliveira, black belt. Poirier, black belt. Moicano, black belt. And he's submitting them all. And I promise you, everybody knows that that's his best submission, but they keep getting caught in it. And the moment he gets it on, that squeeze, second to none. I know you say it's hard to look up to someone younger than you, but he carries a bit of an edge. He carries a bit of an aura about him that now is undeniable. And I believe that every time he walks into the octagon going forward, there's going to be more and more expectation. Chael, when he steps into the octagon next time, he will have the opportunity to tie Anderson Silva for the longest win streak in UFC history. That's how dominant this guy has been.
Wow. I did not know that. And to compare Islam to Jon Jones, what a compliment. I mean, what a compliment that is. And there has never been a 55-pounder who in the media is head-to-head with our reigning heavyweight champion. It's never happened. But I would like to make one more comparison because I love what you said about everybody knew that's what he wanted to do. Everybody knew he wanted to take him down. Everyone knew he wanted to pass. Everyone knew this is his move. That's the opposite of Jon Jones. One thing about Jon, if you go watch 5 of his fights, one thing that you're going to, a commonality you and your coaches are going to come to is he never does the same thing twice. You don't know what Jon is going to do. He is easily the most unpredictable and creative champion we have ever had. Mike Tyson, however, Mike Tyson was going to uppercut you, and it was followed with a hook, and he would tell anybody that would listen, he would warm up like that. He would do that when the cameras came in. He wanted everybody to know it was coming, and nobody could stop it, and nobody could deal with it. And it really is a juxtaposition. I mean, when you're talking about who is the greatest fighter in the world, are we going to look at who is more dynamic, who is more likely going to show more skills? Because that's not what the definition is supposed to mean. It might be one or two moves, but if he can do it to absolute everyone, he wins the status of greatest fighter. And it is so wildly different to look at Jon Jones and Islam. And it's a fun and fair debate. But my goodness, even Jon Jones would not want a fight on short notice that he's a 10-1 favorite.
He didn't.
It's a terrible spot.
Do you remember UFC 151? Was that you or Dan Henderson?
Me.
That was you. Yeah,
it was me.
You. And how long was it? How far ahead of the fight was the change?
Dan Henderson had pulled out 8 days before the fight, 7 days before the weigh-in, which with travel days we had just enough time to get to Vegas.
Yeah, and he said no. And he said not doing it. And so, yeah, that's a little bit of a different mentality. And honestly, that may be why Dana finally admitted that he thinks Islam is the pound-for-pound fighter in the world. Because it takes more than just fighting skills, right? You're a great fighter. But to have that mentality, when Dana goes, he came on the weigh-in show and he said, when I offered these guys this fight, Makhachev told me, I'm going to bed. When I wake up in the morning, tell me who I'm fighting and tell me who I'm fighting. And I was like, wow. And he goes, and when I told Moicano was like, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. Nobody ever was like, I don't know, man. This guy versus this guy, same team. They've been building a game plan for me. There was a lot that went into that. And he just said, I'm going to fight him and beat him in very spectacular fashion. But what did you make of that? How impressive was Islam, or did he have to be for Dana to come off of that Jon Jones? Because Dana has been adamant that Jon Jones is the number one pound-for-pound fighter in the world. He said it on Saturday, and he kind of smiled and goes, are you happy now? It's Islam.
Yeah. Well, it really was incredible. One, to watch stubborn Dana come off of anything. Man, he didn't need any buttering up. They didn't start rolling out arguments and resumes. It was the first thing out of his mouth. I was wrong. It is Islam. But I do wonder, what is it that he overcame? Like what exactly happened where we put him in that spot? And that's where I've got to come back to the mentality. You touched on something, partner. And I'm so glad you brought this to the audience. Think of a locker room, okay? His locker room, where his coach, his head coach, is he's cage side right prior to you having to walk out, get that absolute game face on. Maybe you say the prayer, you give everybody a hug, whatever your ritual is. Your coach isn't there to do the ritual because he's in the ring coaching your other teammate. And the unthinkable happens. That was unthinkable. Umar has never lost before. I wasn't sure when that fight was over that he lost. It was going to be very close. He was a 3 1/4 favorite. I mean, this was an unthinkable thing that Umar was going to lose. And the energy that would have been sucked out of that room, no matter how stoic you wanted to be, and no matter how much you wanted to rise to the occasion, you didn't have time. They sucked all the energy out of your team. The tones are different. The looks are different. The voice of his coaches are going to be different. They just failed. And he regrouped. And he came out, and he was a different guy, by the way. I thought he was going to be different in a negative way. I thought this was going to hurt him. It turned out that anger really helped to serve him. But either way, that was a different Islam. And for Dana to see all of those things and tip the hat, even if it was an opponent that probably wouldn't have been in that spot, it was the mental side. It was the mental strength. This was a mental battle for Islam. He beat 2 guys in one day. He took out Sarukian, whether that was back pains, failed scale, whatever you want to say. He beat Sarukian. I accept forfeits in this business. I accept college wrestling. And then he beat Moicano. Yeah, that makes him the best in the world.
Makhachev is the golden goose of that camp, right? He is the crown jewel of that training camp. And that's what you need, right? You need that guy to settle everybody. At times when you're coaching, Chael, you and I both coach kids. When our kids are wrestling bad, you just can't wait for one of your best ones to get out there and settle everyone. That's what Daniel Zepeda does for me. Everybody can lose. Zepeda goes, he settles the team. Everybody that wrestles after him has a little bit of that sense of relief because they're not used to seeing their teammates lose again. That's what Islam does. He's as good as they come. And by winning this fight, and then Dana saying Sarukian is going to have to work his way back to a title fight, Islam will be a massive favorite against who he fight next. But again, he still won't have that guy, Chael. He still will not have that guy to really bring more eyeballs, because now he can bring eyeballs. But there is no Conor that brings the whole world. So you now, in order to sell, you have to have two sides. It's not one guy's the big time star, then the B side comes and you sell. You got to have the A side who can bring people. You got to find a B side that can bring people, and together you guys can do okay. But there is not that for Islam Makhachev. So my question is, can he reach that level of popularity that Khabib did, or is it going to come down to him just not having a guy that's going to be able to elevate him to that point?
Yeah, you're talking about the Roy Jones curse. Roy Jones is named by everybody, from the media to the fellow fighters, as the fighter of the decade for the 90s. And that really is not even something that is in question. Like 1, 2, and 3 spots all go to Roy Jones. But if I was to challenge our audience to tell me the biggest Roy Jones fight that they ever looked forward to, or what was the hardest fight, or what was the opponent, it'd be strike, strike, strike. It was the problem with Roy. He was so good and he got to such a level, but there was no imagination amongst the public that he wasn't going to win. And Islam very much is in that spot where he does need that opponent. Now, Ilia Topuria helps to fill that, but believe it or not yet. Ilia is something special, but he's got to stay at 45 for a little bit. Bilal Muhammad does serve a little bit, but for whatever reason, the audience is just not clamoring towards that fight. I will tell you a very big fight. It is down the road, but it is actually Islam and Rakhmonov. Should that fight come about, there's something about it where people are going to sit back, and you got to give Rakhmonov just a little bit more time. However, there is something about that I think would get the intrigue of the fans just because of the styles of both guys. Right now, it is hard to fathom somebody dealing with Islam.
And he'll have to lose, right? I love your Roy Jones comparison, and it got boring with Roy Jones. We'd watch because he was so great, but it got boring until Antonio Tarver came. Remember, Antonio Tarver fought him really well, and then he beat him. That is what it took for Roy Jones to truly go to the next level, because once he lost to Tarver, he went up and beat John Ruiz and became a heavyweight champion. So there were so many different things that he had to do to become the Roy Jones of today. Islam will have to do that. Go up, fight a Rakhmonov, fight somebody at 170 to try to, make his because now he's got the record for title fight wins, right? He's done so many things nobody else has done in this weight class. Now it's about building the legacy.
Sarukian, if we can stay on that for a minute, because Dana did comment, look, he's going to have to build himself back up. What do you suppose that looks like? I mean, in many ways, if it's not going to be Sarukian, it's going to be Charles Oliveira, but it probably shouldn't be Charles Oliveira. Like, there was nothing competitive about the first time Charles and Islam fought. And I'm just trying to be kind of fair to that division. What would Sarukian need to do? What would he need to rematch? Because he has a suggestion, Daniel. Yeah. Sarukian heard Dana say this, so Sarukian put out his suggestion. He said, well, obviously, and I don't think it is obvious, but he says, well, obviously, I'm going to have to fight Charles Oliveira again, except for 5 rounds instead of 3. And I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, well, if you did go do that, you probably would be the #1 contender. But I just don't know the audience is clamoring for that match. So what would a Sarukian resurgence, what would that look like?
Just one fight. It has to be one fight. I mean, right now, you have Sarukian, who really does deserve to still fight for the belt. I don't know the circumstances behind his injury, his pullout, but I do know, or at least feel, like him not walking back into a title fight is a little bit, hey, we all have consequences to our decisions, right? Injury, and sometimes it might be unfair. But him not walking back into a title fight may be like, okay, dude, we really had to scramble. Now you got to go earn your way back. So that, because you remember for a while, Dana was saying stuff like, I'm never going to let Jon Jones headline a pay-per-view again. And then Jon Jones started making it to the fights. It's like, and he started doing well. And it's like, okay, let's keep doing business, right? So it's like almost like you have to go find that goodwill again. I think it's going to take Sarukian one fight. And I truly believe that, one, it's part of a consequence. But I also believe this, Chael. By pulling out and not getting that fight Saturday, it was very well known that Charles Oliveira, after beating Michael Chandler, was next. It creates a bit of a logjam now, because if Arman and Islam were rescheduled, now Charles is still just waiting. So who do you want to wait? The guy that fought last or the guy that just pulled out of the fight? I think that is what's going to catch up. That's catching up to Arman. I don't know who he fights. I don't know who he fights that puts him right back in the contention. It would have been great to see him versus a Gaethje or versus a Hooker, but those guys are fighting each other. So it's
Daniel, who's got Patty the Batty? I'm looking at stars. I'm looking at big names. Who's got Patty the Batty? Is he even in the orbit of a conversation for title shot, or did I just get way too ahead of myself?
He's got some work to do still. He's way down in the 10 to 15 range, and it seems like he's going to need a work still. But Arman not yet. But there's some problems, right? Oliveira doesn't have a fight, but he's going to fight for the belt. Arman has no fight, but he's going to have to fight once. Gaethje Hooker, Poirier's free, Holloway's free. So maybe a Holloway versus Arman Tsarukyan fight is good to get
and Hooker
introduced at 155.
Hooker's it's going to take a real good fight over Gaethje, but coming off the Gamrot and the Gaethje, I could see if we were in that situation and Hooker is able to get by Gaethje, I could just see where he could rise to the top because it's Dan Hooker. He knows how to work the media and whatnot. I'm trying to think from a perspective of Islam. Like, as much as we're looking at the division and who should get the shot, at some point, and we've never done this as a community, we've never stood back and said, hey, Islam, what do you want to do? There is no way he wanted to fight a 45-pounder. There's no way he wanted to fight a 45-pounder twice. There's no way that he wanted to fight Moicano. It's not like he wanted to fight Tsarukyan twice. So now we're having an argument of should it be a rematch with Tsarukyan or should it be a rematch with Charles? And the bottom line with Islam, give me some parity. Give me some fresh blood. Give me something so that I can build a resume and I can build a legacy. But if you just have the same names on repeat, and we've never asked Islam, what would you like to do? Perhaps, partner, it's time that we do turn to the champ and give him the little respect of helping to steer his own career.
Absolutely. Yeah, Saturday night he said, this is my belt. I love this belt. If you want it, come and get it.
I love that.
This is really good. He held the belt towards the camera. I was like, oh, yeah, this is very good. Okay, so Islam was the story. But I honestly believe that after watching Islam submit Renato Moicano, while I thought I was unbelievably impressed, I left that arena feeling like I was more impressed with Merab Dvalishvili. I swear to God, dude. I left that arena going, man, Islam looked really good. But honestly, before the fight, I was like, man, I love Moicano, but Islam's going to crush this dude. I just knew that matchup-wise, he would have a tough time against Makhachev. I didn't know Merab was going to win. I was surprised that he was a 3-1 dog. But I didn't know that Merab would do Merab. But I don't understand why we're confused, right? Because, Chael, I swear to God, I went and interviewed Merab the day after he beat Sean O'Malley. I had to wait for half an hour because he was running.
I watched it at his house. You went to his house. It was great.
He was running. And then when I'm waiting upstairs with the camera, I'm like, where's Merab? They're like, he's lifting. The dude was working out. He's a monster dude. And the fight showed that this guy has an ability to win fights like no one I've ever seen in my entire life. And Umar is probably the toughest matchup for him. And he just got through that on short notice with barely any training camp. Crazy, man, that Merab did what he did and looked as good as he did.
How bad do you want it? I mean, every coach is going to throw that out. How bad does this guy want? Then they're going to debate, I want it more than you want it. But sometimes that gets tested. And when the math is against you, when you're down 2 rounds, all you got to do is let one more slip away. When you do that, all the pressure comes off. You can close the night out. Merab said not so fast. Merab said, I'm going to win this round, and then we're going to figure out the next one. We're going to figure out the one after that. Merab, I think, gained some confidence in himself. Merab made one comment going into this fight. It had to do with his training, lack thereof, specifically in wrestling. He made it known that he thought Nurmagomedov had an edge in wrestling. Somewhere in that fight, Merab remembered who he was. Somewhere he remembered he's the guy that beat Henry Cejudo, who beat the Olympic Games. I mean, not for nothing. I think Merab started to find himself. He started to get an energy from the crowd. Not everyone's going to like that. They're going to say, hey, stay focused on that guy. But some guys need a little distraction. Some guys do better when they're not completely focused, and it's for whatever reason, but we have seen it. Merab took his eye off the ball against O'Malley. He even started yelling at O'Malley's coach, Tim, in the corner, which many people would think is a loss of focus. But then all of a sudden, Merab starts fighting better and better. And I'm only bringing to you, Merab went out and did Merab, but I think that Merab's better than Merab knew that he was. I think that Merab as a competitor is something very special. It was Hart that won that match. I do not watch Merab versus Umar and come to you and tell you Merab is a better fighter. I don't know that statement is true.
Yeah.
but he's a great competitor.
Oh
And
my
he
God.
knew when to dig deep. And it really was something special to even see him, who headlined Sphere, our biggest card of all time, take a co-main spot because he wanted this guy so bad. A guy that our Odyssey maker is over 3-1 more likely to beat you than the other way around. And he took it anyway. He knew something, he believed in something, and he had to show that something Saturday. And I agree, that was special.
The way he walked to the ring, he's like this. You know, I'm like, what is happening? And Rob is like, he's waving, he's walking. Dude, I'm like, what the hell? He's got a brown papaka on. I'm like, where's Merab? Is something else, man. So he gets in there, right? And honestly, watching the first 2 rounds, that's kind of what I expected the fight to be. One thing that was a little bit confusing to me early was Merab going backwards. One of the reasons Merab's cardio is so great is because he's always the one dictating to his opponents. He's got you backing up. He's got you defending takedowns. He never takes a back step. But in round 1 and 2, he's taking back steps. And so Umar really is piecing him up. Umar's hitting him. Umar's kicking him. He's keeping him at range. And it's going swimmingly for Team Umar. But then in the 3rd round, Merab decides, I'm going to start to make it a little ugly and dirty. So they start fighting. Merab shoots, defended. Merab shoots, defended. He throws him down a couple times. Then, honestly, Chael, if I'm being completely truthful with you, I think that even though Merab wasn't securing those takedowns, visuals matter. And I don't know that visuals were more on display this weekend than ever than this weekend. Because when Merab would throw him down, he might go, ah. So even though Umar would bounce right back up, Merab had just thrown him down, and Merab let the judges know. They see that. You're dominant in that moment, even if that moment is for 1 or 2 seconds, right? You're backing up, right? When he had Umar backing up. Now you look as though you're just trying to survive. Yeah, you're still fighting because, hey, Umar did not fight bad, Chael. That's the problem. Umar didn't fight bad. Merab really just, his will just took the fight from him. And I thought it was 3-2 Merab Dvalishvili because I thought round 3 was pretty clearly Merab's. Round 4 was closer. Round 5 was Merab's. But Merab in that pace, dude, I've never seen anything like it. And I spoke to his coach after. And I said, he fought at a great pace. I go, but by his standards, it was a slower pace because he didn't fight at a high pace in round 1 and 2. He goes, we knew we would be able to get him down the stretch. We'd get him in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So essentially, they fought round 1 and 2 to try to get to those later rounds because you know the dangers are less as the fight goes longer. So you can have a guy that hits harder than anybody, but in the 12th minute, 13th minute, it's not as bad. 7.5 minutes, Chael, is my thought. 7.5 minutes is what I would always worry about in my fights. If I could get through that with those big punchers, Volk and Rumble, if I can get to 7.5 minutes, I'm like, I think I got him. Because I think at 7 minutes, they don't hit as hard, at all. They don't hit as hard.
Sure. No, that's an excellent analysis. I do agree very much that Umar did not fight poorly. I did come away saying, wow, Umar is something special. It wasn't a matter, and generally it is, if a guy's winning a fight, then all of a sudden he starts losing. Generally, there's an exhaustion and a fatigue. That's not what happened. Umar stood in there. He stood his ground, man. He fought back the whole time. Let me tell you a personal story. I watched this fight with Rafael Davis. Now, Rafael Davis is not only a judge in California.
Wait, Rafael Davis is a judge?
Yeah.
We used to wrestle each other all the time.
Same here. Yes. You would noodle wrestle. I believe it was in freestyle, and I used to have him in collegiate, and he was teammates with Stephen Neal. But one thing about it, this guy knows what he's talking about. But one thing about it, he had judged earlier that night. He was now sitting side by side with me, and the fans were really going oohs and ahs when Merab would play into them. And Rafael just made a comment to me, said, Chael, here in California, it is made extremely clear to us when we go into administrative meetings that a takedown is nothing because a takedown does not cause damage. So no matter how badly the crowd wants to ooh and ah, unless you put him down in a way that there is a blow, meaning the surface is giving a blow, a slam, He said
slam.
there's no damage and it just doesn't matter. And he said this audience is going to be really upset at the end of the night. So he greatly influenced me. He influenced me to believe that it was perhaps a 3 rounds to 2 favoring Nurmagomedov. But
Really?
a close battle. You want to talk about rematches we need to see, man? It's going to be hard for O'Malley or anybody to make an argument stronger than the one Umar just made.
Well, Umar's got some time, though, Chael, because after the fight, he spoke a little bit about his hand. Look at this, Chael. Look at his hand. Look at his
my
hand.
gosh.
He spoke about breaking his hand.
Crushed.
It's crushed. He crushed his hand. He didn't just break his hand. He crushed his hand very early in the fight. So it's going to take some time for him to be ready. It's going to be O'Malley next. Dana said it in the buildup. O'Malley will fight the winner. But Chael.
Oh, did he? I didn't hear that.
Yeah, he said it in the lead. O'Malley's next.
Did Pete or Jan match up with Merab somewhere along the way? Because
that
I don't
was the
remember.
fight. We were at the Virgin Hotel. Piotr Jan fought Merab and Chael. Merab shot on him 50 times.
Okay.
He took 50 shots over 25 minutes.
They fought 5 rounds. Okay.
That's why, Chael. That's why I said to John Wood, I go, and that wasn't even a high pace at his rate. Dude, he shot 50 times against Piotr Jan. He took 28 shots against Umar Nurmagomedov, and that's not many. He took 28 attacks, Chael. How many shots did we, in your most shots in one fight against Anderson, you might have shot 10 times.
Yeah.
10.
Yeah.
And probably was like, God, I don't want to have to double change again and take this dude down. But Merab uses those takedown attempts to just kind of make you drop your hands. So he grabs your leg and he just lets it go. And he starts swinging. And then he pushes you back. And he grabs your leg. It's like, I love it, man. I think the guy is awesome, dude. He's a nice guy. He's out of his mind. He's crazy. But I do believe that on Saturday we watched the 2 best bantamweights in the world. Those two guys will be very difficult to beat. Because unless Sean O'Malley has made some severe changes, right? And he can. Merab's going to just fight him in the way that he did last time. And if he can take him down, Sean's going to struggle. And we know how good Sean O'Malley is.
Yeah, when we're having pound for pound great conversations, we've got to start putting a little bit more respect on Merab. And even though that was his first title defense, and even though it was in a co-main event spot, on his rise to the top, he beat 4 world champions and Henry Cejudo. I mean, not for nothing. If you go look at who's done more heavy lifting, generally in this sport, the heavier lifting really only gets recognized as such after you're champion in the form of title defenses. But Merab had 10 wins before he even got the opportunity. Like, it's a very different story. And if we go back and look at it, man, that dude is really something special. Basic. He's your basic ham and egg. He's going to get close and he's going to look for the tackle and he's going to work real hard in between. But it's still effective. And you and I were talking about that earlier. Mike Tyson was not as beautiful as Muhammad Ali.
Nope.
Boy, he was effective, though.
Very effective. Yeah, Merab is the real deal, man. It's going to be difficult to get that belt off of him.
Hey, let me ask you. Can I ask you? This is ridiculous. Neither one's going to happen. Just for fun, if you have the power and Ilia Topuria is going to be the commonality, would you rather see Ilia Topuria versus Merab or Ilia Topuria versus Islam?
I would like to see him versus Islam more than Merab. I think Merab's too small. I think for a guy like Merab to fight a guy like Ilia Topuria, who has tremendous wrestling ability also, it would be difficult. The power, man. Topuria hits so hard. This Topuria dude is... You don't knock out Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski in 1 year. It's weird. It's kind of weird right now, right? We have Merab, we have Islam, we have Topuria, and you look at their weight classes and you're like, man, are we on the verge of having some long-reigning champions? Because these guys seem to match up very well with everyone in their division. It's like there's like 1 or 2 guys that seem to have the right type of style for them because it's all about matchups. But we got some, I was going to say, a great title reign today, because the sport is advancing and getting so much better, is 3 defenses. It looks like these dudes could defend these belts. I thought those long range Chael, like Anderson, like John, and like George, I thought those days were over. I thought they were over when Kamaru Usman lost his belt. I was like, nobody's going to be able to hold the belt for 5-6 years anymore. But it seems like we have guys now that have the potential to do that. It's crazy.
It's such a good time to be a fight fan. Dana White made a brand promise that only the best are going to fight the best, but that's a very hard promise to keep. Vince McMahon said, Dana, if you don't have a hand in who your champion is, you can't make any money. I mean, right, there was a lot of people that said, hey, you got to rethink that, boss. You got to bring in the biggest draws and keep a little shine on the guy, move some of his T-shirts off the shelf. And Dana said, no one's protected over here. The best will fight the best. I mean, you had Sean O'Malley, who's a bigger star than any of these guys. He brings them right in against Merab, which most of the world knew. History says the wrestler is gonna beat the kickboxer. I mean, it's one of these things. Merab doesn't get an easy night. The plan was Nurmagomedov against the winner. They went forward with the plan to the point that they had to put it in a co-main event spot, but it was the best versus the best. That brand promised by the UFC is one thing. Over Dana's tenure, they have never looked back on.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. It's awesome. Chael, the third fight from the top was Jiri Prochazka versus Jamal Hill. Jiri gets a finish. It was a great fight, man. These guys were battering each other. Both of them had moments, but Jiri Prochazka gets the victory. But my question to you is this. He said in his classic Jiri way, I want Pereira. You know, Jiri, he always meditates, man. It's the best thing. When I would interview him, he goes, he is the best. But has he made enough improvements to deal with Pereira? After watching him Saturday, do you think that he has made the necessary improvements to beat Pereira or compete with Pereira in a third fight? Because history tells us, and it's always fun to say, well, if this happened, or if this happened, it would be good. This would be amazing. We don't have to say if. We've seen it twice. And we've seen the story. We've seen the ending. Pereira finishes Jiri Prochazka. If we want to read that book a third time and expect a different ending, has he made the right changes to give himself a chance?
Physically, yes. I had Jiri in their first meeting. I had Jiri in their second meeting. If I've got a magic wand and I could give my son the skills of one of those two, even now, I give him Jiri's skills. The way that Jiri can fight like a martial artist, maybe a karate guy, and then he can switch right into a boxer, and he can go southpaw range, and he can go inside as orthodox. He's an amazing fighter. He's an amazing competitor. He's not going to get over on Pereira, and he's not going to be given the opportunity to try. Not only when you fail once, but when you fail twice, and they're both collectively less than 15 minutes, it's just nobody's a good enough storyteller to make that happen. Now, of course, if Prochazka keeps doing what he's doing and Alex decides to stay in the division, but see, that's where the wrinkle comes. If Alex gets by Ankalaev, whether he beats him or he doesn't, see, it doesn't matter if he doesn't. Whether he beats him or he doesn't, he's going to leave the division. That's my belief. And don't forget, the way we got Alex to light heavyweight in the first place was not by beating Adesanya the second time. It was by failing to beat him. He came back talking about Pereira, but he came back up a weight class. And I do believe, win or lose, he's only going to do Ankalaev, and he's going to say goodbye. He's coming after, if it's still available, but he's coming after Tom. He's actually not moving up and coming after John right away. His plan is to come up and go after Tom and the interim title as a way of ultimately getting to Jones. And I took the time just to tell you that story because Prochazka was special. Prochazka has a special will. Prochazka versus Jamal, for me, was the fight of the night. I thought Jamal looked awesome. I thought Jiri looked like a martial artist, and Jamal looked like a cage fighter. I mean, Jamal looked so mean and tough. He made a promise to himself, if I ever go down, I'm getting back up to my feet. He goes down twice. He gets right back up to his feet. I mean, he was trying to learn. He was trying to learn from that loss at 300. I thought it was a special performance. But as far as that division goes, do not expect Pereira to be around much longer.
I think Jiri looked better. I think Jiri, he said that he wanted to do a better job of keeping his hands up. He didn't. He was still had his hands down in close, but he's got great like head movement. And he even said it after the fight. He goes, I wanted to try to keep my hands up more. I have to watch the fight. I don't know if I did that. I'm like, well, Jiri, I got an answer for you. Your hands are right at your waist, even though you and Jamal were chest to chest. But he's got such great eyes, right? He's got such great eyes that he has the ability to avoid punches. But that is why he struggles with Pereira, because of his split stance, that martial arts stance. Pereira kicks his legs. Once he kicks his legs and slows him down, then Jiri has to stand in front of him. Once Jiri's standing in front of him, as we both know, if Pereira can land, it knocks you out, especially if your hands are down. Jiri hadn't shown those improvements to me yet, but maybe he'll do it when he fights Alex. But again, it's going to take him continuing to win, continuing to be great fighters and former champions, and then he'll find himself with an opportunity. Because if Pereira gets through Ankalaev, who's next? He had to fight Khalil Rountree last time, and he was number 7 in the world. There just aren't many guys for Pereira. So Jiri may find himself the beneficiary of just circumstances. The circumstances of not having anyone else to fight. Chael, Chris Weidman retired last week. We did this thing for him on the weigh-in show where everybody came in, he's crying, and you can see how much it mattered to him to walk away and feel the love from the people. But when you think back to Weidman, it's hard to imagine that the thing that stands out to you more is then that knockout over Anderson Silva, which at the time it might still be the greatest old crap moment outside of Max Holloway knocking out Justin Gaethje. But that was a surreal moment to watch Chris Weidman knock Anderson Silva out. You know, hey, listen to this, Chael. It was July 4th weekend. Remember the UFC always has these big international fight week. I don't know if it was you, but we were working at Fox at the time. We're all sitting up on the stage. I wasn't doing commentary. I was doing the desk. And they gave flags. They gave American flags and they gave Brazilian flags. It's July 4th. It's Chris Weidman, the All-American. He walks out to boos in Las Vegas. Anderson walks out to an overwhelming amount of cheers, Brazilian flags in the air. I remember as a guy that's sitting up there, we're not supposed to be we're supposed to be impartial. I'm just waving the American flags because now I'm filled with spirit of the red, white, and blue. I'm ready to fight every American in there that's cheering for Anderson Silva on July 4th weekend. It was crazy. And then I started to act like a child once Weidman knocked him out. I'm just, you're a little fat kid that does stuff like that on the playground. I'm doing that to fans in the arena, dude, after Chris knocks him out. This dude had an amazing career.
It was awesome. I also could tell what that moment from the crowds meant to Chris. I don't know what Chris was waiting for in terms of what moment. He has some of these wow factors. I mean, he goes out there, he stops Lyoto Machida. That's a wow. He beats Vitor Belfort half out of his shoes.
Yeah.
That's a wow. I just don't know what it was that Weidman was trying to get, because I can't imagine you're going to have higher highs than the ones he already experienced. But I do understand the idea of, well, let me go out with a good performance. But I just think he's awesome. I think he was an awesome wrestler. I think he was an awesome hope when he had Olympic aspirations. I think it's great that he found Ray Longo and Matt Serra. Whereas Chris Weidman, who at one point was just a hungry, starving kid with a dream, is now a leader in this industry. Chris Weidman's time in MMA is not done. It's going to transfer over into the corners. And I think it's great, Daniel, because I do agree. He had enough competitions. Now he's going to compete from a different perspective. And whatever life he was scared to get to, or whatever life he thought was ending with retirement, he's going to find out he's wrong. There's another one for a select few, but he happens to be one of those select few.
Yeah, he's got an ability to do this. He really does. And I think that he's going to have some opportunities to talk about the fights and show his personality, which is as big as the Pacific Ocean. All right, Chael. Well, I gotta be honest, man.
Wow.
I fancy you a smart guy.
We were doing so well, and then
I fancy you a smart guy.
Pacific Ocean.
I fancy you a smart guy. But then you make a dumb decision to coach opposing me on The Ultimate Fighter. You tried to turn it down. I get it. You tried to turn it down multiple times. We had to chase you down. You choose to coach against me. Chael, how excited are you to coach The Ultimate Fighter? But how excited are you to coach it against me and try to prove who is the supreme dude? It's good guy, it's bad guy, and the other guy, like you call it.
Yeah.
Whoever wins The Ultimate Fighter, I want a month of just good guy to start the show. That's what I want.
What? No, this program, bad guy and the other guy, this blockbuster program. Okay. I was actually quite flattered. The Ultimate Fighter is the biggest vehicle in our industry. It's the biggest vehicle in the history of our industry. To be selected as coaches behind the scenes, what people don't see, it's pretty competitive, and you can hurt some feelings. People want an opportunity to go on and do that. And there is a competition side. And yes, in fairness, it would bills my ego to defeat you. That's true. I am going to do everything that I can to go out there and beat you. One thing that I think you and I maybe could do a better job of, and now since we have this program, maybe this is where we got to do it, but is explaining to the audience exactly what they're seeing. Because there is so much that goes on behind the scenes on The Ultimate Fighter. For example, you and I do not know who the participants are going to be. We will never know. We will not know their names. Once we have their names, we will not have their resumes. You and I will be in a room, and these guys, the first time we ever see them, are going to walk in for the fight to get into the house. I think that's a very meaningful component, but that's never really been explained. The audience doesn't know when you and I are going to go out there and we're going to pick teams. It's not much different than recess for kickball. We don't really know who it is that we're recruiting. So now you're recruiting maybe a specific look or what you feel to be a specific attitude, but those brief 2 to 3 rounds that you and I are going to see them to make those decisions, I just think if the audience is aware of the kind of competition that this is, in addition to the bells and whistles and the funds and your Chris Lieben and Junie Browning moments, I think that they'll appreciate it even more. And maybe you and I could do a better job of slowing down and explaining to them a little bit about what they're seeing on camera.
Absolutely. And to have 2 guys that aren't even fighting goes to show it's amazing that they have that confidence in us to put us out there and try to help us coach. And
are they going to make us grapple? We're going to have to grapple, aren't we? They're going to do something.
Maybe we'll grapple.
I feel like that's the swerve.
Well, if they hit us with the grappling, then I need you to introduce me to your doctor. Hey, if they tell me, if they go, yo, you got to grapple Chael at the end of this thing, then yeah, I need you to hook me up with your doctor, Chael. I'd appreciate that.
I don't know what that comment meant, but that's just a weird thing to say. To me. What is it? What were we talking about?
This guy's crazy. Guys, we have no show on Thursday, so we will see you next Monday. Chael, thank you for always, just being you, man. It's been amazing doing this show with you. I appreciate you. Guys.
Thank you, brother. Pacific Ocean.
What? Pacific Ocean. It's big. It's vast.
Big.
Huge.
Large. Large is what I'm talking about. Large. Massive.
I'm Daniel Cormier.
Infinite.
Until next time. Peace.
Infinite is what he was trying to reference there, people.